Okay, the meeting's up now. So now if you click on the link, you should be able to get in. Oh, okay.
And you got this all set up so people aren't going to be crooked? Okay, I'm in. I want no audio.
Right.
Okay. You have, this is all set up.
Sorry?
For the candidates, how much do I go around?
Well, we need to take a look. All right, so you're coming out of the loop. You're in the screen. You're in the field of view. You're in the field of view. You can move that way quite a bit. You can move that way a long way if you want. You get small. Yeah, still in. Keep going. Keep going. You're getting close to the edge, but keep going. So
Maybe by that cord.
yeah. So basically, anywhere in front of the chairs is good.
I guess a couple of feet either way.
Here?
There's from the edge of it.
Yeah, you're in the field of view there. Yeah. Yeah, about there. Yeah.
Oh my God, a king size Sharpie.
Uh-huh.
That's amazing.
Luxuries. You're getting out of the, you're about nearly out of the field. Yeah.
Thank you for your technological prowess that you
Oh, you're welcome.
graced us with.
So I have to chat up. So we solved that problem.
Yeah.
What else do we need? There was a second question I had for you. What were we going to do about the chat? Oh. Yeah, I know.
So the chat. I mean, I thought the idea was for you to be looking at the chat.
Right. But I have two questions. One was about the chat. And one was about the so for the chat, I can Oh, the list of candidates.
I don't know if you added it about the PC pounds or pounds for broadband. You may have added
Greg
it.
said we don't need to do that because these long.
Oh, that's great.
And so we put the Wi-Fi for the park up there.
Oh, okay.
And Greg said something else.
Okay, wonderful.
So that's one thing.
Hi, Liz. I'm good. How are you? See how they do. Yeah. All right.
So it doesn't matter. Oh. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So they already. They had already. But anyway,
Jan has an, oh, and can we try and put a mask over that and see if it'll pick up?
Oh, okay.
Can we turn it
Hang on,
on?
no, it's
No.
on, yeah, but can I, do you have a list of the candidates that come in?
The Google Doc that I had put together, Jane printed out, it's up there at the sign.
All right, okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure the microphones will work through. Say something. I see you on. I see you on the Zoom. You probably didn't have the other one turned on. Yeah. Push it up.
Oh, no. Where did my? Oh, here you have it. Oh my God. Almost lost it. I've lost it. Okay, and there's my phone and it's on the chat.
Maybe even before I was married. Sarah and I were dating. Your 30th anniversary. Oh my goodness. Yep. Yep. Kids too, especially. So how's the dating? Yeah, why don't you? So engaging. Yeah, street art outside around. So is that a break out? Yeah. Yeah, I saw you guys. Yeah, urban, yeah. So I lived in 7 years. I'm actually younger. I mean, they're very similar in my cities, but the demand No, I do know. Praise the Lord. They're coming right in the government stop firing. It's never been required. The reason I dropped. No, it's really, so you had to get it to 72 hours. You still have to fill out that app. Right. Testing. No. Well, either way. Well, it's so weird having a so and if someone's calling now, you know what?
Did you meet the folks? Noel Washington is the treasurer. Just think like that. Yes, and make sure that if there's any napkins, plates. I'll do that. I didn't have to. Okay. And there's, there's coffee and there's water for tea and there's, regular water.
Well, when I told her that I was going to get time, she said, "You are not touching anything. She got nothing to find." I said, "I know. That's what I do really well." So now I'm like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect job.
okay. No, there's two.
Yeah.
I'm going to get
You're the muscle.
I think those two are. And there's my husband. I don't know if it goes.
I don't think I
He has a black nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he always used to come when he was 5'8". I was like, oh, you are dreaming. I think I'm taller than he is now. He's shrinking fast. But he never made it. So he's the little fellow.
With the baseball cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Our son and our grandchildren are kids.
Wow.
Which would be really nice to have.
Oh,
Yeah, it'd be really nice. They're 5, 7, 10. They're growing up. They live in here right there. Sean used to play the rowing team at Dartmouth, and then he moved on, and now he's teaching. He was an engineer. He's happy. They're good. They're not gonna come back this way.
No.
I'm going over my notes for the last one.
Just want you to know if you have one.
Yeah, come on, let me come introduce you to the people here.
Testing. We've got about 20 people on Zoom. About, yeah.
We made sure she would say,
How many people do you have?
Uh-huh. Okay, I don't think so.
That's good.
No, the congressman's here.
Is Kenyatta on yet?
No.
Not yet. Not yet, okay. And then it'll be, Austin wants to go before Frankel. So it'll be Austin.
Well, Frankel, what did he say he had to leave?
He said 2 o'clock. And I said, well,
Austin said 2:15.
Dan's going to take her
Okay,
to Austin.
all right, good.
Okay. And so it'll be and if with Alex and Kenyatta, we can slide them over to come. If they haven't yet, then it will be Pam and it will be Austin. And then it would be Frankel. We also have one partner who's been.
He said he would be.
He's not in a rush. Right. So we have, so we have to see whether either of these guys are here. But I think if they're not, then we go on the signing list, right? Then we go to Cousin Davis, and Dan Frankel.
Yeah. And then
if
it would be Arthur and Salisbury. Or?
yeah, it's Salisbury here.
She's here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Salisbury, yeah.
Bill Parker. Okay. And we'll just keep checking. Will you give us a high sign if you see Alex or Kenyatta join?
Yep.
Okay, and who am I looking for?
Ram is one. So what would be good to be It's 25 after. So just sort of let people know that we're about ready.
Okay,
If
so just
anybody outside.
we're starting at 1:30, yeah?
Yeah, it's 25 after.
We'll be starting in 5 minutes.
Yes?
It's good to see you. And I'm Patrick, Western PA Political Director for Josh.
Sure, it's nice.
Nice to see you again.
Glad you're here.
Oh, Austin will be speaking on that.
Right, and this, he's a, we have, Lamb is here, he's one. These two people are moving in and they all look so wonderful. Neither of them is doing it. So if,
Is there any possibility of splitting?
so then also, so if they're not here, we'll have Lamb, Austin, Frankel.
Understand.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'll let him know.
How many people do we have remaining?
29, 30. Yeah.
Oh, Lori has this baby. He's been busy.
No, we just ignored it. The questions from the audience.
You're standing there. The camera is catching you from here down. Want me to stand over there just as a guide? Yes, please.
Yeah, we were setting it up for the Fetterman level.
That was in Glasgow a few months ago. That was hell. And I see John Fetterman, of course, he's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And he kind of stands out in the crowd, I mean, especially I'm not that tall.
Yeah, flip the little thing on.
Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome members who are in the room and members who are online. At this point, I think we have more people who didn't want to go out in the weather. We have more people online. All right. We'll try that again. Better?
Yep.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone who's here today, our members here today, as well as our members who are online. And I was just saying at this point, it looks like we have possibly more members online than we have here in the room because of this weather.
33.
33 people online at this point. The numbers have been going up. People are just signing in. And we also welcome all other friends who've come and want to hear the candidates speak today. This has been a rather challenging primary season with redistricting and delayed decision-making about what the actual maps are going to be. So at this time, we understand that the filing deadline for U.S. Senate and House has passed, as well as the deadline to challenge any petitions. So our field of candidates for the U.S. Senate and U.S. House, I think, are settled. The candidates for Pennsylvania House, their petitions are due tomorrow, so there may be some more candidates arise that we're aware of at this time. We've invited everyone that we're aware is running. It's going to mean likely that the county will be mailing or printing the ballots late because they have to wait until all the challenges and all the races throughout Allegheny County, I think, are done before they can print and mail the ballots. So it makes an added wrinkle this year. Also, I want to let people know that Pennsylvania House District 24 no longer includes any part of the 14th ward, so we won't be endorsing in that race this year. And state committee, we didn't put the state committee on the ballot this year. I apologize for that. As you know, your endorsement vote today is really critically important. We have been able to demonstrate in the past that candidates who get the endorsement of the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club get a bump in terms of their voter turnout. And so this is our first attempt to really be able to influence the selection of candidates in the primary. So please think long and hard about who you're going to vote for today. We'll be printing up the endorsements in the club voters guide that gets mailed to Democratic households in the 14th Ward. So we have quite a reach. The 14th Ward is the second largest ward in the state.
Malcolm Kenyatta just came on.
What?
Malcolm Kenyatta just came on.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. All right. Only members who live in the 14th Ward and who have paid their 2020 dues are eligible to vote today. New members who joined after February 10th will not be eligible to vote today, but are welcome and can participate in future endorsements. Everybody's been asking about your ballot. Your ballots are going to come via OPA vote, and Mac Booker is in charge of that. He was going to send the ballots out at 1 o'clock. So people should be seeing those in your email. You'll have an email from OPA vote. When you open your email, you'll have your unique link to your ballot, and only you can access that ballot and vote. Voting is going to stay open until 6 o'clock. Because for some people, it may be easier to go back home and vote on your device at home rather than try and vote on the phone. Today, candidates are going to have 3 minutes to speak, followed by 4 minutes to answer questions. Our timekeepers today are Terry Chalip and Salim Khan. We ask if anyone who really needs to have a private conversation with someone, could you please step outside the room to do that? It's distracting for the candidates. It's distracting for people who want to hear the candidates. So we appreciate you respecting that. I want to thank everybody who worked on the endorsement committee, Jane Lewick, Michelle Feingold, Marvin Leibowitz, and Greg Kolchansky, who's sort of an honorary member, who figured out how to link all these pieces of technology together to be able to do a virtual meeting. We were here for 3 hours Friday afternoon trying to figure out how to make it all work without feedback. So it's been a learning curve. We also want to thank both candidates and individuals who made donations toward the cost of printing and mailing the voters guide. And with that, let's get started. We have Congressman Conor Lamb here. You can see Congressman Lamb. I put these 2 marks on the floor. If you could just sort of stay within that area, you'll be on the screen. And if you, I don't know whether you want to, this mic is sticking up for the thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Hello to everybody that's on Zoom. I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you over there. And good morning, I guess afternoon now to the rest of you. Thank you for letting me come in for this. I really appreciate the contribution that you make to our party and how hard I know you all work to turn out voters every single election, odd years, off years, everything. We need it now more than ever. I would bet that we all agree in here that we are at a time of pretty much unrivaled danger for our democracy, which I know was hard for me to accept. I really thought that with all the hard work we all did a couple of years ago to get Trump out, that maybe the air would sort of go out of the balloon a little bit on their side. But if anything, it's been the opposite. And, I was there on January 6th, and what I felt like I saw that day was the true depth of the commitment that these people on the other side have to come back into power and really rule our country from a minority position, no matter what. They've shown us how far they're willing to go and how much they're willing to lie and cover up what happened that day. And when you think about what our response to that has to be, it has to just be a fierce determination to work harder than ever before on all of these elections, up and down the ballot. And I know it's like a chicken and egg thing where we're trying to use the same tools of the democracy that they're attacking to win and be successful and outcompete them over time. But that's who we have to be, because that's what we all believe in. And ultimately, I think each of us in here probably believes and understands that a majority of people are with us. They are with us in respecting the institutions of this government and wanting them to continue and not wanting it to fall into the hands of people who don't believe in democracy itself. But we all know we're in a very, very crowded media environment where a lot of people aren't thinking about January 6th or the democracy in general terms every day. And so this campaign is going to be a very challenging one, especially this one for the United States Senate. It is going to be the top race in the entire country. I expect it will be the most expensive and maybe probably one of the hardest fought Senate races of all time. There's no presidential race to take up attention. The Senate is 50-50, and on everyone's list of the top pickup state is Pennsylvania. So I think it's important for you that you have a candidate that you know is going to thrive under that very bright spotlight. And what I can offer you is the experience of someone who's been through something like that before. As you all know, you've seen it on TV. Many of you have come out to my district even and helped me in those campaigns, which we are eternally grateful for. We've had a very, very tough fight in the last 4 years. We've won all those races through hard work. I've gone to Washington and voted multiple times for the Voting Rights Act, the Women's Health Protection Act to put Roe v. Wade into law, raising the minimum wage, everything in Build Back Better, the PRO Act for unions, bills on climate change, bills on healthcare, bills on prescription drugs, defending Social Security and Medicare. Our core priorities as Democrats, I've been able to vote for, defend, and advance while representing districts that are this tough. That's the combination we need to be successful this year. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it. We got Q&A. Great.
Because the people who are joining don't.
That way, if you ask me a hard one, I'll just ask myself a different question. Go ahead.
I have a question about what's going to happen now in this terrible war in Ukraine and pressure for Pennsylvania to step up its fossil fuel extraction activities.
Sure.
So we really need to lower our fossil fuel extraction. We need to clean up our wells. We need to cap the oil wells, et cetera, et cetera. But there's going to be a real push, to just get all of it out there and ship it out, however they can, all that liquid natural gas, getting it over to Germany. So that's to say, despite all the problems there are, how do we actually not make it worse?
That's a great question. The question's about the demand for natural gas from Pennsylvania that's going to rise out of the situation in Ukraine and where we're going on climate. I think we have to think short term and long term, right? And on all these policy issues, we, as important as climate is, we always also have to be thinking about economics and security. They're all very intertwined. So I think short term, actually, the most pro-climate decarbonizing thing we could do would be to try to extract natural gas from places like here in Texas and New Mexico and send them to Europe, because A, then that natural gas isn't coming from Russia, where they're definitely dirtier than we are and how they do it. But B, and this is critically important, if we don't get enough natural gas to Germany and Poland and these other countries, they are going to burn coal. That's what they're doing right now. Coal use is on the rise all over Europe, especially in Germany, because they let a lot of their nuclear reactors lapse and now they have no other options. And so in the short term, you know, the least bad option is for these people to be burning LNG, especially from the United States, because it emits half. Now, we have to get the methane part right here so that we're not leaking methane all over the place and losing the benefit of the trade-off of coal. But it's important that we do that in the short term. In the long term, I think we all know we need to go from 58 billion tons worldwide of CO2 every year to zero by 2050. And so one of the things that this crisis will hopefully do is inspire all of these countries to double down on their Paris commitments, inspire, you know, us to pass Build Back Better, which will be the most important piece of climate legislation in history, and will really advance things not just on solar and wind, but on the grid itself, on hydrogen, on fusion, which is one of my interests, on the next generation of nuclear. We really need a diversified portfolio, again, because we never know exactly what situation is going to arise in the world. You know, just one kind of closing thought here. We're very focused on Russia and Ukraine right now. I think everyone knows we're going to be in some low-level form of conflict with China, at least economically, for the next 5 or 10 years. They could deny us access to a lot of the key minerals we need for solar, for electric car batteries, all that sort of thing. But we don't want to lose ground on climate if things like that happen. So that's just why we need a lot of options, and we always need to be trying to pick the most decarbonizing one, sometimes of a set of bad options. Go ahead.
Hi, somewhat related question is, what do you think about the break free from plastic pollution act?
You know what, can you follow up with me afterward and just make sure I know what that one actually is? Because we've had a lot of different bills on that topic, and I don't want to answer it if I don't.
You probably know more than I do. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Democrats always do well in the Southwest and Southeast. Key, though, of course, for many people, is the T, Northern Tier, Center Part. How do you feel you can do well in the T?
Yeah, how do I feel I can do well in the T? Well, first of all, before I get to the T, I want to make sure, sometimes people also don't appreciate how important the Lehigh Valley has become up above Philly. But the third and fourth largest cities in Pennsylvania now, number 3 and 4 after Philly and Pittsburgh, are Allentown and Reading. And almost all of that is driven by Dominican and Puerto Rican immigration into our state. And that exists really all up the Lehigh Valley, but it's an enormous group of voters who should be ours. A lot of them are just making their initial registration commitments in Pennsylvania now, and they're up for grabs. So we've really been targeting them. I can speak Spanish and been making Spanish language commercials and website and everything, and really pushing. So that's a group that we don't always think of, critically important at both phases. And then in the rest of the T, it's a lot like how I've campaigned in Greene County, Washington County, Westmoreland. They like the fact that I'm a Marine Corps veteran, that I'm young, and most importantly, that I'm willing to go there and do events just like this one, but in more difficult areas for a Democrat, and take those people's questions and show up at their county mayor as well. You just got to work. Sometimes you have to find issues that are not so much national issues, but you know, a local veterans issue or a local farming issue or manufacturing. Or our infrastructure bill is putting things in all these towns all around the state. I can campaign on that as well. So, we out of time?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate you having me back. Thank you. I'd love to have your support.
Our next candidate is going to be a Republican candidate, Pennsylvania House member Malcolm Kenyatta. So for the people in the room, please watch the screen.
Well, thank you so much. I wish I was with you in person, but happy to be with you, albeit virtually. The work that you do is just yeoman's work. And so I'm grateful for the time that you spend getting to know the candidates, talking seriously. The audio is muffled, somebody's saying. Okay. Talking seriously and substantively about the issues that we face, and also talking about what it's going to take to make sure we have the type of enthusiasm and energy among the base of our party that's going to be necessary for us to win in a very tough environment. You know, President Obama said it best. Democrats, we get shellacked in midterm elections. We have, because the young people, progressives, voters of color that we need to turn out in significant ways, we're not always able to do. And in this moment, on so many of the issues that each and every one of us understands are critical, we can't afford an election where people take off or stay home. And so I think the way we do this is by having somebody that can go to every single community and speak with a level of urgency and authenticity about what's broken and about what we need to do to fix it. You've all heard me talk about making America's basic bargain, the one good job backed up by a union, your kids going to a good, fully funded public school, being able to go to the doctor when you're sick and fill the dang prescription when you leave the appointment, and then to be able to retire with a level of dignity and a community that is safe and clean, that has clean air and clean water. We have to have a nominee who understands what happens when government doesn't deliver on those things. Have somebody who understands in their bones what happens when folks don't have good schools, don't have a family sustaining wage, don't have access to healthcare, don't have a safe community. I understand those things in my bones. And I think we need a nominee. And frankly, for the next 6 years, we need a senator who's not only going to be able to win this election, which we will do, but who's then going to spend those 6 years fighting for you and fighting for our progressive values. And so I will stop there and just thank you again for everything that you do and really look forward to taking your questions.
In the room for Representative Kenyatta. Any questions for Representative? Good question.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyatta. I have a question for you regarding oil and gas exploitation in Pennsylvania in light of the fact that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Pennsylvania to produce, really rev up our whole fracking infrastructure in order to be able to send natural gas to Europe to cover their energy needs. So I'm worried about that going into the future, and I would like to know what your take is. How should we handle that in order to not continue to increase our greenhouse gas emissions?
First of all, thank you.
You may not have, the candidates have 4 answers now, 4 minutes to answer questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I share that concern, and I'm the only person in this race that says we should not be approving new permits for frack gas. I think it's a mistake. We know that it's not only a detriment to our climate and to meeting the climate targets that have been laid out in Paris, and which all scientists are saying that we need to hit by 2050, hopefully earlier if we can do it. But we also know that there's a real impact to the people and the communities that are around these wells, that we're seeing our seniors who are dying at much earlier rates. We're seeing young babies be born with lower birth rates. We still do not know right now the chemicals that are used in the fracking process. They will not tell us. And so the way that we meet this moment is not by walking away from our climate goals. The president said this as well. This is a moment for us to double down on clean energy, to double down on things like geothermal, on bio, on wind, on solar, on hydroelectric generation. Also, I do think that there's a space and a place for nuclear in the equation as well. But as your senator, my approach to this would not be continue the status quo of continue to give huge tax breaks to oil and gas companies and continue to think we can drill and frack our ways out of this in a moment where we are in a climate emergency. As your senator, I'm going to treat this climate emergency like the emergency that it is and work to make sure we can create good paying jobs in current and expanding industries and all the clean energy production methods that I laid out.
Thank you. Another question? Was there a question that came up on the screen?
There's something on chat.
Chat.
Mr. Kenyatta, foreign policy question. What's your general opinion of the Middle East situation? Mr. Kenyatta, foreign policy question. What's your general opinion of the Middle East situation?
Yeah, I can hear you. So my approach to this has been this. First, let me just say I'm grateful. A couple of days ago, I think a number of us in the race got the J Street primary approval. I probably me and both of my opponents, all three of us got it. For me, this, as complex as this situation is, in some ways it's simple, and simple in this way, that as a country, when it relates to foreign policy, we have to keep our word. Israel is our strongest ally and friend in the region. And as your senator, I'm never walking away from that relationship. And I'm going to be a constant vote to make sure Israel not only has a right to exist, but a right to protect itself, that we are standing by that relationship, and that we're doing things that get us closer to a sustainable peace and to a two-state solution. I think that we've seen a number of areas of breakthrough. I know that Israel is going to be hosting a multilateral conversation with a number of Arab nations, the US as well. And I think that that really speaks to this president's ability. We see it right now in Ukraine, the way this president has been able to pull the NATO alliance together to have a hard line against Vladimir Putin. But he's hired really smart people, understands these issues in a deep way. And I think America still has a big role to play in getting to a peaceful resolution to what has been, you know, decades and decades of war and strife. And so I'm unequivocal on believing that Israel has a right to exist, that we should stand by them, that we should continue our security commitments to them, and that we work as hard as we possibly can to get to a true peace. And I think that that's going to come from a two-state solution.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyatta. That ends your
Thanks so
time.
much.
We appreciate your participation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Is Austin Davis, Lieutenant Governor, who's going to be speaking both for himself and for Josh Shapiro for governor.
Thank you so much. Okay, and hello to everybody who's joining virtually. I'm State Representative Austin Davis. It's a privilege to be here with you this evening and bring greetings on behalf of my running mate and colleague, Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor. And just to come here personally to ask for your support for both Josh and I and the United ticket we're running on. You know, Josh hasn't been a stranger to Western Pennsylvania as Attorney General. I can tell you, if we're lucky enough to have him, we're lucky to have him as our Democratic nominee, but if we're lucky enough to have him as our governor, we're going to get somebody who takes on big fights and delivers real results for the people of Pennsylvania. And you have to look no further for the UPMC Highmark battle that went on here in Western Pennsylvania. Josh stood up and took on both those giants to make sure people in Western Pennsylvania had access to health coverage. That was an important fight that he stood up on behalf of Western Pennsylvanians. We've also seen him take on big fights as it relates to the Catholic Church. Josh is somebody who doesn't shy away from taking on big issues, and I'm proud to be running with him to serve as his lieutenant governor so that we can fight to create family-sustaining jobs here in Pennsylvania, to ensure every child has access to a thorough and efficient education here in Pennsylvania, and to make sure that we're creating ladders of opportunities for folks to join the middle class and live out the American dream here in Pennsylvania. And so I couldn't be more thrilled. Many of you may know me as a legislator here in Allegheny County. I represented the Mon Valley region just across the river here for nearly 5 years now and served as the chairman of the Allegheny County House Democratic delegation of state legislators. I believe this is one of the most critical elections we've seen in Pennsylvania history. This gubernatorial race is going to be the most important governor's race in the country. And I think in order for Democrats to win, we should have a balanced ticket that's representative of the diversity of our Commonwealth. I believe both Josh Shapiro and I achieved that, both a geographically balanced ticket as well as a racially balanced ticket. And people have real lived experience in our communities. I'm the proud son of a union bus driver and a hairdresser. Literally, my dad's driving a Port Authority bus today, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. I will always stand up for working class folks because that's who I am, that's who I represent, and that's where I come from. And so I'm humbled to just ask for your support for both Josh and I as we embark on this primary and ask that Democrats come out of the primary united behind a balanced ticket of Shapiro and Davis. Thank you.
My
my stepson, Fury, Josh Shapiro, has the impression that he wants to spend more money on police rather than shift some of the duties of police officers over to others who might be more suitable at it. How would you respond to my stepson? And I have to say, I sort of share his concern about it as well.
Yeah, so his question was Josh's position on resources for police officers and shifting that burden. Look, I think Josh has been pretty clear. He does believe police officers do need more resources to carry out their job. We ask police officers to do a lot in this Commonwealth. Quite frankly, some things that they shouldn't be doing. And so I think one, we need to increase, Josh's vision would be we need to increase funding for mental health training, make sure that people are getting the supports and the services that they need so that they don't interact with law enforcement. We also need to make sure that we're supporting police officers in carrying out their duty to keep the public safe. So that would be my response to that.
Okay, that's not making me happy.
I mean, sure. Is there another question?
Sure.
I'll repeat it for you. Yeah.
Reggie, regional greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes.
What are you guys as a team going to do to push that through?
Yeah. So Reggie is right now going to go through. As a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, I voted for Reggie when it's come up for a bill. Josh has said he doesn't believe necessarily Reggie is the best direction, but he believes we need to upgrade our alternative energy portfolio standards to include more renewable forms of energy, to take our energy development. We have a large energy sector here in Pennsylvania, to take our renewable energy share from right now, it's currently 8%, up to 30% by 2030. That's a goal, and we're going to go on a plan on that in the very near future. But that is the direction he'd like us to take. I think he'd like to see, Reggie does do some benefit, it's beneficial in some ways, but I think we can get a lot more benefit from upgrading our alternative energy portfolio standards to include more renewable sources of energy to include our energy share. Thank you.
And see it out for healthcare. But what's the plan for
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So just recently, I, as a state legislator, worked with Governor Wolf. As a member of the House Insurance Committee, we set up the state-based exchange here in Pennsylvania. I just helped implement an easy enrollment program for people when they file their taxes to help connect people with the Obamacare system to help add additional healthcare coverage. I'm proud to say we've implemented that program, and it's estimated to help connect up to 700,000 Pennsylvanians to affordable healthcare coverage. We need to continue to build on the Obamacare model that we have right now in Pennsylvania that has been proven to be successful. And I think we're going to continue to build on that in the Shapiro-Davis administration. That is something that we just did recently. I did as a legislator, and something I'm very proud of.
And someone who grew up in the projects and is now a proud homeowner in the 14th Ward, I have to say I have a sincere heart for affordable housing. Here in Pittsburgh and in small towns throughout the state, affordable housing is an issue. What can the state do to help create and sustain affordable housing for our people?
Yeah, so the state has a really unique arm in PHFA that funds a lot of affordable housing developments here in the city of Pittsburgh as well as in our region. Right now, the state is sitting on about $7 billion in ARP funding that needs to be driven out by 2024. I think that creates a real opportunity for us to put significant resources in affordable housing dollars. There are two primary issues that as I've traveled the Commonwealth that I've seen with housing. It's affordable housing is certainly an issue, but quality housing is another issue. We have some places, like particularly districts like I represent, the Mon Valley, that have high rates of affordable housing. You can buy it, but it's not a place where you would necessarily want to live. So we need to invest in resources to help rehab communities that haven't seen development, that are still affordable, but haven't seen the growth in the building of homes that we need, to keep track of the population. So I think we have a real opportunity. I think we're going to be rolling out an affordable housing plan in the next few weeks. So I would say stay tuned for that. But we have a real opportunity with the
Gee, it appears we've got technical problems again.
We'd like to move on now to PA Representative Dan Frankel.
Thank you, Liz, and thanks to all for participating virtually. It's always a privilege to be here in my community with this group that has been so essential to my success for these past 24 years representing you. You know, it's easy to talk and dwell upon some of the negative stuff in Harrisburg. It's voluminous, and every day I chair the Health Committee and the Democratic Chair, which is equivalent of the ranking member, and have to basically respond to an agenda that is, you know, mirrors what's happening in Washington in terms of extreme stuff. But let me kind of focus, I think, more on kind of the things that I would like to see happen, that I'm engaged in. I think all of you know, after all these years, the things that I've done with respect to the work to protect women's reproductive rights, gun safety legislation, civil rights for the LGBTQ community. Those are things that are core principles and policies that I've been advocating for and will continue to. But in my role as the health chair, there are a number of different initiatives that I think that I have been very interested in. I will say I was fighting that UPMC Highmark fight for the last 13 years and was thrilled when Josh Shapiro took that up and brought it to a resolution. We still have a lot of work to do with respect to access to healthcare and controlling costs for healthcare. One of the things that I have had the opportunity to do, based on legislation I authored, was to be appointed to the Pennsylvania Healthcare Cost Containment Council, which is our agency that deals with trying to provide transparency and with respect to healthcare costs. And it's about 30 years old, and it was a great thing at the time, but it is now completely not state of the art. We've seen other states go way past this with respect to transparency. So I'm going to be working hard with that council to bring more information to people, to bring the capacity for others to the legislation that will bring controls to the cost of healthcare that are rampant. You know, and the other thing is we've got to deal with pharmaceutical costs. And I've proposed I think a unique approach to this. We'd like to do nationally in Washington, but I proposed what is a Prescription Drug Accountability Board. It's essentially a PUC for prescription drugs, something that Maryland has just instituted and Maine is working on as well. That will create, I think, the mechanism to put a lid on things like the escalating cost of insulin, escalating costs of EpiPens, and anyway, so that I'll turn it over for some questions. No.
All right, so not much good has been going on in the Pennsylvania legislature for some time. If the Democrats had majority in legislature, what would prioritize Pennsylvania state from the fossil industry and
She basically, they're having technical problems.
Well, first of all, what you're going to see this week is an attempt in the legislature to basically prevent the governor from being able to enter the regional greenhouse gas initiative. I believe that the Democratic caucus, while that I expect it to pass, we will have enough votes to sustain the governor's veto for that legislation. And I think it'll be a priority for our caucus to make sure that we preserve the governor's ability to enter the Reggie. So I'm optimistic in that. In addition to that, we need to be able, we have an enormous opportunity given all the federal money that's come into the state, billions of dollars that my Republican colleagues don't want to make investments in. At the same time, well, we have diminished the Department of Environmental Protection's capacity to do any enforcement. So while we may have the laws on the books that are supposed to hold energy producers accountable, we don't have the mechanism, the tools, or the enforcement agency that is robust enough to be able to do it. So I'm hoping that when we get the authority, that we make those investments, particularly given that we have the opportunity to do that. And there's so many other things we ought to be doing with this money. I mean, it's just amazing to me that with the needs that we're facing, our communities, one of the things that the governor proposed was adding about $100 million to finally provide the direct service providers a raise and to be able to create more robust services for seniors and people with disabilities that are, waiting lists. And we know, in addition to with the high level of people exiting these jobs, that we need to find a way to attract them. So that would be another key investment that we have the opportunity to make. Oh, okay. The question deals with the Fernhaller Bridge, and well, first of all, it's a city bridge. The state's role will be to provide the money to rebuild it. So the Department of Transportation, the PennDOT, I think is going to be the mechanism to do that. It's a key thing. We've got to get it done, and we've got to get it done quickly, because at the same time we're looking at replacing the bridge over the Commercial Street Bridge on the park. So I think there are concerns about design. I'm hoping that the community will be heard on part of the design, but part of the design is going to be restricted with respect to what we can do in the amount of time we have in order to be able to make sure that we have an alternative route for when we rebuild the Commercial Street Bridge over for the Parkway out to Squirrel Hill Tunnel. It's absolutely crucial in addition to which, we have a public safety issue with respect to not having that bridge for people, for EMS, for police, for fire, for people who have to take their kids to school. It's taking people a lot longer. So we have a sense of urgency with needing to get that done. And I hope that we can work collaboratively to address the community's concerns, but keep this on a fast track so that we get it done in a timely way.
Thanks, Daniel.
All right, thank you very much.
Our next candidate is Will Parker, who's running for the U.S. House of Representatives. Will?
Okay.
So you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay.
4 minutes for questions.
Okay. How's everybody doing? I'm excited to be here. This is my first time at a forum hosted by the 14th Independent Ward. I just feel the energy in the room. Love being around voters. This is my type of crowd right here. But anyway, my name is William Parker. I'm running for Congress. I'm from the north side of Pittsburgh, born at Allegheny General Hospital and raised a little bit up the road off of Federal Street. My background is in business, also an inventor, and I'm an advocate for technology. I'm an advocate for economic justice. I'm an advocate for entrepreneurship, and I'm an advocate for food security. I'm the nephew of Willie Stargell. Some of you might not know that. I'm the nephew of Willie Stargell. I love this city. I love this region. And I'm a big sports fan, from the Steelers to the Pirates to the Penguins. I'm not here today to sell you on any rhetoric. I'm here to sell you on results. From breaking down systemic barriers to building smart businesses, I'm putting in the work right now, and I'm here to prove that to you today. Some of you may know me because I ran for Pittsburgh mayor last year in 2021. I was actually the first Black male to enter the race, and I think that led to the encouragement of my fellow Ed Gainey jumping in after, which essentially led to the first black male being elected. And I don't know who's happy about that or who's not, but I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty proud because I think it was time for change. I think we needed something different. So, you know, I'm here today and I want to answer your questions and offer as many solutions as I can. Thank you. Come on, I need some questions. Ask me something. Please ask me something. Absolutely. Entrepreneurship is when, oh, so he wants to know what sets me apart from the rest of the candidates. Mike Doyle was a good candidate, and we have some candidates in the race right now, and it's pretty competitive, but he wants to know what's the difference between me. So the difference is between me is I really believe in economic justice. I believe in entrepreneurship, and I believe in technology. Pittsburgh is booming right now in technology, and I want to make sure that everyone is able to be a part of this new sector. I think I'm huge on diversity, and I just want everybody to be involved. From I believe that there's a lot of infrastructure money out here right now, and it's all about, to me, it's all about what can be done in these next 2 years. What's feasible? You know, I hear a lot of concerns for climate and the environment, and I'm for all of those. But my thing is, there's federal infrastructure money readily available right now, and I would like to put that into the hands of diversified entrepreneurs, you know, so they can create electric cars right here. We could design electric cars right here in this region. I would also like to encourage entrepreneurs so they could get licenses so they could be contracting involved with the rebuilding of our bridges. I think that's a key initiative we should all be a part of, because these bridges that we cross reflect all of us who live in this community. I also would like to see some money being invested in entrepreneurs so they can start up businesses to help people charge their vehicles, electric charging stations on the turnpike and things like that. I have a creative mind, and I just want to make sure that everybody in the community is involved with our growth. Yes, sir. Okay. There's good police out here. Let's just start off with that. There's good police out here, and some abuse their authority. You know, what happened to George Floyd is unfortunate. You know, he wasn't the first one this has happened to. You know, it's a shame, but we have to address this. And any legislation put forward, I would carefully consider and read over it. And you know, if it's beneficial for us in our community, which helps us reduce the harms to people and residents in our community, I would be for it. Yes. Gun safety. So she wants to know how I feel about gun safety. I think, you know, I think everyone has the right to bear arms. But I think that, again, there's people out here who are abusing the system. I would like to reduce the fear. There's too much fear out here. You know, everybody they trying to scare people. You know, I don't walk outside thinking that something is negative is going to happen to me. You know, so if there's a way that we could promote a sense of confidence that you know, our streets are safe and it's safe to go outside into the community, I would be for that, because it's just too much fear. And I think that that's what leads to the abuse of weapons. And then, you know, we have to have the legislation. Everybody's at different odds with that. You know, some people are for guns, some people aren't for them. I personally believe that there's not really a need to abuse the right for weapons. So with that. right over here. Okay, I would shift that money. I would make sure that we, that funding that's going out, build back better. When that passes, the infrastructure money, there's money out here also from the American Rescue Plan. That's what I pay attention to. I pay attention to the economics. I'm a businessman, and I understand the need that money has to come into our communities, and it has to be available for everyone, whoever wants to be an entrepreneur, whoever wants to make use of that money. I think that we need to make that available to them so they can create things, so they can design things. There's people in here right now with ideas, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're young or you're old. We need those ideas that come to the forefront. If you have any ideas out there, if you're interested in finding a solution for something like what this gentleman, just the question this gentleman asked, bring them to me. I want to talk about this on my campaign trail because I think it's very important. Thank you, everybody. Thank the 14th Ward Democratic Club. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Our next candidate up is going to be Abigail Salisbury, who's running for Pennsylvania House District 34. District 34. And Abigail, if you'll remember, when you're asked a question, you have 3 minutes to speak and then 4 minutes for questions. If you can just give a word or two so the folks at home won't hear the questions from the audience, if you could just say what the questions are. If you sort of stay within those marks, you'll be on the screen.
Okay. I hit my mark. Okay. Hi, my name is Abigail Salisbury. Again, I am running in the 34th district. So if you're not familiar with the redistricting, that's sort of a collection of about a dozen communities surrounding Swissvale, where I'm currently on council. You have Forest Hills, up into Wilkins, over into Wilkinsburg. So it's that sort of, I tell people the district used to look like Florida, kind of looks like Ohio now. They made it more compact. So, and it does include part of the 14th ward, which is why I'm here. So I know some of you already from the Jewish community, from the legal community, but for those of you who don't know me, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. I started a law practice. I'm a solo attorney over in Swissvale and used to practice in Wilkinsburg before that. And I started that practice 8 years ago in order to serve nonprofits and small businesses that could not afford or find legal services customized to their needs. I charge a reduced rate in order to make those legal services affordable and accessible to the nonprofit and small business community. I, like our previous speaker, a big believer in entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship can take a variety of different forms, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. 5 years ago, I was elected to Swissvale Borough Council. Frankly, to be honest with you, I ran because I was looking for something to do because Donald Trump was elected president. I wasn't maybe going to run for Senate or anything at that point in my life, but I was a big fan of the think globally, act locally kind of concept, so I ran for Borough Council. I've spent the past 2 years as president of Swissvale Borough Council, and I'm very proud of the things that I was able to achieve since I've been on council. I came into a very contentious time on council. It was very normal to hear screaming, hollering, carrying on. And I'm very happy to say that nowadays, we've had a big culture change and we're really a very productive group. I like to say that I can work with, any kind of people and try to focus on getting things done. I do that with my nonprofit board clients when I try to get people refocused on the goal of why you actually joined that board. You joined the board of the cat shelter to try to save cats, not to fight with Harold across the table from you at the board meetings, as tempting as it may seem. So what am I running for? I'm running for the same principles that I created when I became president of Swissvale Borough Council, which is service, safety, success. What does service mean? You got elected to be a public servant. Act like one. Serve the public. Make sure that you provide the public with the services that they need, whether that means they flush their toilet and it doesn't come back up into their basement. Yeah, that's gross, but it's a problem we have in Swissvale and other areas around here. Or that they get their trash collected and that they are treated with respect. Safety, I was able to reform the way that we hire police in our borough. That is a process that's prescribed by the state, but I was able to make it something where everyone in council participates, and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee came up with a battery of behavioral questions that we ask as a group of council members in order to make sure that people are focused on de-escalation, on diversity, on respecting people in our community. We ask questions like, what would you have done if you had been at the site of the George Floyd killing and watched someone behaving in that way? What would you have done? And you would be surprised, people will tell on themselves. And I think that's a big example for people who come on council, or sorry, who apply to our council for employment and success. We all want to see success in our community. And so we do a lot of programs that try to advertise. We love Swissvale, but we want everybody else around us to love that. I feel the same way about the 34th district, that we love it, but maybe not everybody knows how successful we are. So we want to broadcast that to the broader community. So I'll pause there and ask if anybody has any questions. Not everybody all at once. Yes. Sure. So the part of the district that covers the 14th ward, it is essentially if you go over the bridge that fell down in your mind and you hang a right. So it's basically to the side of Dallas and up. So it's that portion of Point Breeze, and it'll be that little portion of Homewood there as well. Yes. Thank you. Absolutely. I have a lot of respect for Miss Lee. I voted for her twice. I think that the difference between her and me is that maybe because I come from that municipal level, it is very much that bottom up nuts and bolts kind of thing, as opposed to a big issues kind of a thing. Those big issues are very important. But what is also very important to me is the fact that our sewers are collapsing, that they haven't been updated in 70 years, and we have people who have sewage in their basement. It's very important to me that our borough building fell down 2 years ago because we never had the money to maintain it or do anything with it. Our council chambers collapsed through the roof of the Department of Public Works, and it was a miracle nobody was killed. You see all these things happen, that our building collapsed. It was a miracle nobody was killed. Bridge collapsed. It was a miracle nobody was killed. Commercial Avenue subsided onto itself. It was a miracle nobody was killed. We're not going to be able to keep saying that over and over and over. There's going to come a time when there's not a miracle and somebody's going to be killed. And we have to fix that infrastructure. We have to get those things done. We have to focus on those bottom up nuts and bolts issues. And that's what I'm here to do. I think that there's a way to save money on those public safety services. There's about, as I mentioned, there's a dozen different boroughs that are included in this district. And we, for the most part, have our own police departments. There are some areas that don't. We currently police 2 days a week. Swissvale does for Braddock Hills. And I think that those intermunicipal cooperation agreements are going to become more and more essential and more common as we move forward, because you do then have an opportunity to take advantage of an economy of scale. We each have our own police facilities, our own police cars, our own police chief who makes maybe 100 grand in each of these little boroughs. You need to consolidate some of that and work together in order to take advantage of combining, get rid of some of the redundancies, and then provide superior services with a combined police force. Anyone else? Yes. I'm Abigail Salisbury. Salisbury, like the steak that they fed you in high school cafeteria. So I've been hearing that my whole life. Might as well lean into it. Yeah. Anybody else? Good.
Our next candidate to speak is going to be our current Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, who's running as a candidate for the U.S. Senate. Mr. Fetterman. And let me remind you, since you just arrived, candidates have 3 minutes to make a statement and then 4 minutes to answer questions. If you sort of stay between these two lines, you'll see.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, all right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak before you today. I would be honored to have your endorsement because I think our values of this campaign align closely with the values of the voters in this very influential ward. You know, our campaign is structured in a way unlike any campaign in this race, Republican or Democrat, or really any Republican or Democratic race nationally among challengers. I'm proud to say that we have over 190,000 grassroots donors in this race. I'm proud to say that we have created a level of grassroots enthusiasm that has permeated now nearly 90% of Pennsylvania's zip codes. I'm proud to say furthermore that we have 5,000 volunteers that are going to be working in the field to really drive our message home to voters across Pennsylvania. I'm proud to say that we've already won and run statewide here in Pennsylvania. I'm proud to say that in 2014, Governor Wolf ran with my predecessor and received 1.9 million votes. And then in 2018, when I joined the ticket after I won a very difficult and competitive primary in 2018, that ticket received 2.9 million votes. Million more votes. In between a Trump narrow victory and a Trump narrow defeat in that. And I've done that the entire time, running on core progressive values that were once considered too left to run in the Democratic mainstream back in 2016, if any of you remember my first race. We didn't have, barely gas money in that first race. But this race, everything's different. We're the most well-resourced campaign nationally of any challenger, Republican or Democrat in any state. And unless you're a hedge fund billionaire from Connecticut writing yourself a check, we're doing it the old-fashioned way, $28 a pop. And that's the kind of campaign. And that enthusiasm has translated into the lead in the polls. It's translated into a level of grassroots enthusiasm that creates full rooms in counties all across Pennsylvania. We're in Berks County yesterday, Montco last week, every red county. That's what it's going to take to win this race here. We believe anyone in this ticket, in this race can win. But we believe we present an incredibly strong opportunity to flip this seat and turn it blue when it's so critical that we replace Pat Toomey with a Democrat that's going to vote together like with other Democrats. And that's my commitment to you. If you trust me with your vote in May, you'll never have to worry about my vote in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Okay, sure. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, first, it should be noted that I've never taken a dime from the extractive industries, fossil fuels, gas fracking industry, nor would I ever. Second, I've been pretty consistent in my message on this, is that fracking produces natural gas that is a major part of our energy portfolio right now. About 40% of our electricity comes from natural gas. And we have seen now with the invasion with Ukraine, that if you are not energy independent, your energy security is dependent on a nation like Russia that can create all kinds of problems and challenges. But I'm also have always been an ardent believer in climate change and have consistently maintained that as well too. In fact, in 2009, I was selected by the Environmental Defense Fund, the Steelworkers and the Sierra Club to champion for the Obama administration cap and trade legislation. That would have created a market incentive to remove carbon from our economy, because we believe then, as I've always believed, that climate change is an existential crisis. Two things can be true at the same time. Fracking should be done at the highest safety standard, environmental regulations, and it should not be regulated by people that are receiving money from those industries. But at the same time, but that is not something that I believe can be realistically achieved in a few short years. I think it's a much longer transformation. And that's what I've always consistently maintained. And when we do continually make that transformation, the workers and the communities that are relying on them need to be taken care of. They can't just be cast aside and said, well, you can learn how to code, or you had a good run, that's enough. But our energy security is critical, particularly in light of what's going on in Russia, but our climate security is critical. And I think those are two goals that need to proceed at a level that's consistent with our party's stance as being the party of science.
Folks online are saying you need to hold the mic up a little higher.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what was that? Sure. Yeah. Well, I think I'm sorry, the question was, how do I plan to interact with red county voters? Is that a fair? Okay. Well, I do it all the time, have done it all the time, consistently do it all the time. We're just, like I said, it was just in Berks County. I've been going to more red counties than any campaign in this race. Have been to all 67 counties 4 or 5 times already. And the interaction and the messaging is consistent, and it's well received. Make no mistake, my campaign isn't about turning Potter County blue. That's impossible. But we can't turn tail and run and say, well, it's Potter County, let it go 80-20. That's the wrong message. We can't do that. That's how Democrats lose. That's how Republicans scale up. And our message has been consistent, and it's been well received in these counties. And the margins, that we helped generate in 2018, Scott Wagner didn't even compete essentially west of the Susquehanna. We were that strong. And if you're able to suffocate a Republican momentum surge in Western Pennsylvania, they have a very, if not impossible, time of winning and scaling up statewide here in Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of unreachable voters in these counties, any more than a Republican could march in here and try to get your votes. How many votes would he or she get? Probably very few, I suspect. There are your Republican counterparts in counties just like ours reversed. But there are reachable voters. There are thoughtful people that don't want the way the Republican Party's headed. And having that conversation and making that argument has been a core value of this campaign all the way back to our first race. We've been a true 67 county campaign. Every county, every vote. It's part of our logo. Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I also want to remind everyone, both here and online, that the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club co-sponsored the forum last week, the Barbara Daly Danko Forum for U.S. Senate candidates. And so if you have, I sent you in an email, everybody should have the email with the link to the forum. And the link is also on the club website. And you'll have an opportunity there to really hear the candidates speak in more depth. Today, you've had an opportunity to hear from Congressman Lamb, State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who are all running for U.S. Senate. There were 2 other candidates who were unable to join us today, Alex Khalil and Kevin Baumlin. But if you go and listen to that forum, I think you'll find it extremely informative and helpful. It was a terrific forum. So next, our next candidate is Summer Lee. Summer Lee is currently a member of the Pennsylvania House from District 34. And Summer is both a candidate for the US House of Representatives, District 12, as well as a candidate for District 34. Summer.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to be in front of you all again. This is my third time being with you. It's only our second time being in here because the pandemic got us last time, but it's good for to be with folks again. I remember the first time that I was here was 4 years ago, which seems like it was so long ago, but I was a first-time candidate from the Mon Valley who had almost no name recognition and was really building up from scratch. But we were building a movement then. And I ran at that time because I truly believe that we had an opportunity to organize and to build with folks who had never had folks come into their doors, had never been engaged in the political processes the way that folks in this community have been. And since then, we've been building with folks around economic justice, around environmental racism, including helping to shut down a fracking well that was going to be the closest to a densely populated community that we would have gotten. I know a lot of you all were with us as we were fighting against that proposal, as we were organizing frontline community members, as we saw folks come in from other communities that had already been impacted by fracking. And it was an honor to be able to use our campaign resources in that endeavor. We've been fighting for a fair wage, a living wage for all. I have been on every union picket line, every protest for our workers. And we have been fighting for that. And I'm proud to have a bill that would create one fair wage. We have been fighting since then for housing justice and transportation justice. We have been reaching and building a coalition in ways that we have never seen in this region, Black folks and white folks and brown folks, folks from suburban communities and rural communities and urban communities. We have been building with folks of different socioeconomic statuses. And because of that, we've been able to tackle issues like policing. I'm proud to have led our Commonwealth on our police accountability slate of legislation, that because I was willing to fight differently and help to get my colleagues to fight a little differently with me, that we were able to take the rostrum right after George Floyd's killing. And because we took that rostrum, we were able to get our Republicans to move for the first time in decades and decades on police bills, winning a police database bill that's one of its kind, and probably one of the few Democratic bills that passed bipartisan unanimously that was not a name bridger, a bridge namer, which we do a lot of. Yeah, it's been a hard 4 years. It's been a hard 4 years. When you come to a space and you're fighting for folks who are rarely in these spaces, fighting for folks who are the most marginalized, that means you have to tackle the hardest issues first. Not just starting from the ground, but we also have to think about folks who are living differently than us. So we're talking about folks who don't have healthcare, folks who don't have clean water and clean air. Those are the folks that we have been prioritizing in this movement. And I've been proud to work with you. I'm running for Congress right now because we have an opportunity. For the first time in 26 years, we have an open seat. We are going to need people who are going to excite our base, who are going to energize it. We have double turnout in my race. We had over 50% turnout in the pandemic. We are going to need that if we're going to win our governor race and our Senate races. Y'all told me I was going to get more time because I was running for 2. I'm joking, it's fine. I'm joking. Yes, ma'am.
We have a question that came in on the chat. You were the first Black woman elected from Western Pennsylvania to the state house. And if you win the congressional seat, I think you would be the first Black woman in all of Pennsylvania to hold that seat. What does that mean to you and to the people you fight for?
Certainly. Yes, that is true. And it's something that I'm incredibly proud of, though I think that we as a community should be proud of that. We have a long history. This is one of the original 13 colonies, and to still be breaking those concrete ceilings is something that we have to work on, that we have to be intentional on. For me, and what it means is that when I knock on doors sometimes, I talk to people who have never seen somebody who looks like them and sounds like them, who have navigated society like them, speaking at their door about issues that they care about issues that they need. It's the opportunity to recenter the folks whose political needs we are putting on the forefront. because those are the community members who will be our base, who will turn out. But infrequently do they have somebody or have a reason to turn out. That's how we were able to double voter turnout, by reaching people who even the Democratic Party has said, it's not worth talking to those folks. They're not super voters. Or why go into that community? Those aren't the type of voters that you should focus on. We focused on them and we brought them out. And now we are writing legislation with them. Those are the people who are in our office advising us on policies that they understand their tenets. They're folks who are public transit users, and that's incredible. But also, I think it's incredible because it's important to recognize the revolving door that we see too often. And what we know is that when we think about who is allocating resources, when we think about who gets those resources and avail themselves of the access, it's often not people who come from my community. When we think about who gets the grant money or who has walking around money and who they give it to, they don't often give it to the poor Black business owner who we need to get resources and funds. They're not often giving it to folks who look like me. We have to break that up. And the way that we do that is by ensuring that we have representation, not just of our race, but class representation, people who have come from different communities and different economic backgrounds. That's how I've been tackling my time in Harrisburg and hopefully in Washington, D.C. And it's not easy. I need support, right? I come without those same networks that a lot of my opponents or a lot of my colleagues come with, because I didn't grow up around politics. I didn't grow up with those wealthy networks, but we're building it, and we're building it every single day. And I think it's worthwhile. My goodness, that is the question that I think we would all like to answer. You know, tensions in the Middle East are such a complicated web, and they've been a complicated web for so long. And like a lot of those tensions, the United States does play a role in it, you know, and we have, and not just the United States, you know, other superpowers have played roles in it. These are areas that we're fighting over natural resources, for instance. Particularly right now, as we're looking at the Ukrainian crisis, we're looking at the perfect example for why we have to have energy independence and why we should not over-rely on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels and extraction has funded in its fuel wars for time immemorial, right? And these are communities that are also vulnerable because they are destabilized. They've been destabilized. These are communities that are post-colonialism, where they're looking for some sort of autonomy. And the United States is having to really work out what is our interaction going to be with communities like that, as we recognize that military intervention is not the way always, right? But also recognizing that because of the role we've played through past military intervention, right? Past funding and appropriations, right? That we have some sort of role. And I think that that is the position that we're in as a country right now. But oil, racism, a lot of that is fueled by the othering of people, right? When we think about our reaction to folks in the Middle East, we're talking about people who are not white. Some of them are, right? But we are talking about a lot of folks who are Black and brown and who we don't often see ourselves in. And so we are not always willing to see the humanity in them when we take actions or when we think about what our diplomacy or our diplomatic position will be on that. So I think that we're having that globally, right? That reckoning about how Black and brown people, right, are people, right? They are humans and they are not just collateral damage. I think it's an oil question. I think it is also a military aid question. So we have a lot more to talk about on that one. That's a great question. Oh, the same thing that will happen if Malcolm Kenyatta wins both and if Austin Davis wins both, two candidates before me who are also running for both seats. Oh, no, it's okay. We are all running for both. And we're all running for both because each of us have come into a space where none of us have occupied, where people like have never occupied. Me and Austin are the first Black people outside of the city of Pittsburgh to ever serve. And we both served at the time. Austin will still be serving in a majority white district. My district used to be about 70-something% Black or white, and it's actually been created as a new minority opportunity district. I believe, and Malcolm, of course, who is our gay Black man in our district. We've been representing people who we care about in communities that we care and we fight for. And I can speak for me specifically that it's important to me. My service has been the honor of my life. and it's been challenging, but we have been able to tackle issues and bring a new perspective to office that I don't believe we've had from Western Pennsylvania. And I've been able to, through that perspective, push and challenge and expand the realm of what's possible for even my Democratic colleagues. Republican colleagues are something different. I don't think I have the magic to fix that one. But with our Democratic colleagues, I see them move differently because of our relationships, the relationships that we've built. I would be loath to just give that up willy-nilly. So I am running for both. I think that the perspective that I bring, I would be honored to go to DC and represent a group of folks who have never been represented in this Commonwealth in Washington, DC. And on the chance that I am not, I would be honored if folks would still want me to represent in my state house seat. Oh, if we win both, it goes to a special election. Oh, I get to decide. It goes to a special election for the House seat. So what happens is if I were to win both seats in November, we would have a round of special elections. What happens is that you have to give up one. When you give up one, candidates will come forth, which I think, and that's the other reason why I ran for both, to be completely honest, is because we're in a redistricting year. I know a lot of people who are qualified, who are active and engaged in our communities, who are very interested in being state representatives. And they did not run because they didn't know what district they would be in, or they weren't able to gather infrastructure in a time. And some of them because they respected me and they wanted to wait. But I think that it's going to be a robust race. And I think that there are going to be a lot of qualified candidates who you would love to meet. And you all will have an opportunity to do that. But we have to first get through this race. Oh, my time. Thank you all so much.
We told Summer she could have a couple extra minutes since she's running for 2 races. So there's one more question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, that's my favorite question ever. If I were in charge of Democratic strategy, I would tell Democrats to invest heavily in its true base, right? There are Black and brown voters, there are young voters, there are progressives and liberals. I think that that is important that we are putting money into there and recognizing that those voters are also deserving of our courtship, that we have to go to them also. I think too often the Democratic Party relies on a really incestuous kind of revolving door politics, right? Where we invest in the same consultants, and those consultants give us the same stale and kind of outdated methods, which is usually mail, TV. We're not investing enough on those sorts of platforms that reach and follow the voters who we need. So I think that that's number one. Number two, gerrymandering. Gerrymandering isn't just a Democrat versus Republican thing. And we were dealing with that here in Pittsburgh. We are having a reckoning right now where we're saying as a party that, are we going to be a reflective party that looks like our voters, that looks like our country, or are we going to continue to say that we will sacrifice Black and brown voters every 10 years to make it easier for another district to have a blue seat? And that's a balance that we're going to have to weigh, right? Investing in the candidacies of exciting people is the third thing that I would say. There are people who come from communities who are Black women and brown folks and Black men and gay folks and trans folks who are qualified. They are qualified and they do have experiences. Their experiences may be different than what we are accustomed to, but if the party were investing into those types of races, we would see a groundswell from those communities where they bring people in. Door knocking and grassroots is important, and we can't ignore those. So that's what I would do. And also I would say, pass the bills that we say we are fighting for. If we have a trifecta in the House and the Senate and the presidency, then we shouldn't be talking about if we're going to raise, when we're going to raise the wage, right? We shouldn't be talking about healthcare. We shouldn't be talking about housing justice. We shouldn't be talking about environmental policy when we say that we're the party of science. Now we got to put our money where our mouth is. And we have to start to get those things across the finish line because our voters turned out, they knocked doors for us. They donated to us. They organized, and we have to honor that commitment that they have made to us by delivering those things that they felt most important. Now my time is up.
That was a good question. That was a good question for the last question for Summer. Our next candidate up is Jerry Dickinson, and Jerry is running for the U.S. House of Representatives. Come on out. I know you've got the drill, 3 minutes and 4, and make sure you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's great to be back to the 14th Ward Independent Club. In 2020, Mike Doyle and I had a friendly primary, and I spoke then. So I'm Jerry Dickinson, and I am a constitutional law professor at the University of Pittsburgh. Statistically speaking, I probably shouldn't be here today running for Congress. I was born here in Pittsburgh. I was born to a Black father and a white mother. Both were far too poor and too sick to take care of me. I was placed in the Allegheny County foster care system at a very early age. I bounced around to some shelters and then landed in a large foster home out in Shaler Township. A white couple from McKeesport had moved out to Shaler, had 2 kids of their own, and opened up their small ranch house as an emergency at-risk foster shelter. 11 children altogether came into that foster home, including me. White kids and Black kids, teenagers and toddlers, all coming from broken homes and tragic circumstances. And they did all they could to take care of us. They gave us food, a roof over our head, but sometimes trauma and distress is too much to overcome. We've all dealt with issues related to poverty and addiction, mental health, incarceration, homelessness, and joblessness. This is the world that I come from. This is the world that I was born into. Somehow I made it out okay. I worked hard. I overcame a lot of obstacles. I got good grades in college and went on to become a Division I athlete in college at the College of Holy Cross. I became a Fulbright Scholar to Johannesburg, South Africa, and then a tenured law professor at the University of Pittsburgh at the age of 32. So not too bad for a poor Black foster kid. But my proudest accomplishment is none of those things. It's my 2 daughters, Aria and Nyla, and my wife, Emily Dickinson, who's not the poet. And so when I'm looking at the world that my 2 daughters are growing up in, and Emily, I think about January 6th of 2021. I'm looking at the world that we're going to be leaving behind for my 2 daughters, and I'm thinking about climate change and rising sea levels and wildfires. I'm thinking about the Pittsburgh that my 2 daughters are growing up in as the least livable region for African-American women. And I'm thinking about the Pittsburgh that they're inheriting, where they could be going across the bridge at any moment, and that bridge collapses due to failed government. And they're growing up in a world where a nation state is invading another democratic nation state over in Ukraine and Russia right now. That's the world my daughters are growing up in. And that's why I'm stepping aside from my career as a law professor to run for Congress. This is what has inspired me to represent tenants for 10 years in eviction proceedings to keep a roof over their head. As a civil rights lawyer, to fight for fair housing for the disabled and the elderly here in Pittsburgh, to go to South Africa through the State Department to fight on behalf of squatters in inner city slums of Johannesburg, South Africa, to come back here to Pittsburgh to work on police reform efforts right here in Pittsburgh, to talk about and teach about the fragility of our Constitution at the University of Pittsburgh, and now to go down to Washington, D.C. to fight for voting rights to save our democracy, to fight for the money from the infrastructure package to make sure that our roads and our bridges are safe, to fight for climate change, to fight for Medicare for all, to bring those things here to Pittsburgh. Why? Because this is where I come from. To work on behalf of those who have less than, to work on behalf of those who are treated as less than, because that's where I come from. That is who I am. So, statistically speaking, I shouldn't be here today, but I'm here, and I'm running to become your next congressman. Thank you so much. All right, questions? Yes. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Education is an important part of my life, including Emily. Emily is a teacher for the deaf at Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf and Early Childhood Education. So public school is extremely important. I'm a product of the public school system here in Western Pennsylvania. I went to Shaler High. I was the class president at Shaler High. I beat Al Gore by 12 votes. I kid you not. His name was Alexander Gore, and I beat him by 12 votes in the senior year. Big fan of public schools. I want to do all we can to ensure that charter schools are not taking money away from our public schools. Right now, we see that happening across the United States. That's a huge problem, huge gap in funding problems, and that's a major problem. Now, are charter schools going away? Probably not. They're here. And so we have to deal with that. How do we deal with that problem? We are going to have to force charter schools to have the same accountability mechanisms and measures as our public schools. That means for testing and standards and teachers, those standards need to be the same as public schools. We need to, bring some equity in that realm. So certainly, I would like to put more dollars from the U.S. Department of Education into public schools, and Congress would have a role to play to place more restrictions on charter schools so that they are not stripping money away from our public schools and from, to be quite honest, my children and many of our children here. So thank you. Yes, yes. Yep, because we have, so say it again, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. How can Democrats come together with a coherent message for the party and for the voters? This is a big problem. The Democrats, when you think about the policies that we throw up for elections every year, it's like a huge buffet of options, right? I mean, it's like it's Medicare for all, it's healthcare, it's climate change, it's police reform, it's criminal justice reform, and for a lot of that's a lot to have to absorb. Right? That's a lot of policy mechanisms. We need to narrow the scope of our message, and we also need to be able to storytell better. Right now in Congress, there are a lot of Democrats who are not able to storytell and explain how certain policies are affecting ordinary people, ordinary Americans who are struggling day by day, paycheck by paycheck. So a couple of things I will say heading into 2022 and 2024. One very important message that can be brought to the forefront, and we know this could work, is that Democrats need to take hold of voting rights as a major message, because we're going into 2024, an election where Republicans are preparing to potentially overturn another election. If we can get people to understand that voting rights is very important, that's going to be important. And then healthcare reform, a message that can resonate with a broad swath of people across socioeconomic and race, that we need to talk about healthcare reform and how it is affecting our pockets, how it is affecting those prescription drug prices, how it's affecting my parents, both of whom struggle with ischemic stroke and pancreatic cancer. Both of them had their savings stripped away from them due to healthcare costs, okay? And that's happening to people all across the United States right now. And if we can bring that message and simplify it for people, I think the Democrats are going to be in a much better position. And then lastly, Democrats like to talk about aspirational things. We want to achieve this, and we want to achieve that, and we want to achieve this. That's fine, but we also have to talk about what we've actually achieved, what results we've actually brought to the forefront. And we have not done a good job at doing that. When I'm in Congress, I hope to be able to press that message forward. So thank you. Chris. Yes, Tracy. Yes, authoritarianism. I mean, this is why we almost had a free and fair election overturned for the first time in American history in 2021. From a legislative standpoint, to deal with this authoritarianism, there's a couple things that have to be done immediately. Many of you will remember January 6th of 2021, the certification of the election was thrown up for a vote. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is the Electoral College Act of 1887. The threshold for throwing a free and fair election up is one House member has to object and one US Senator has to object. And it goes straight to Congress to vote on whether to overturn an election. That is problematic. And so when I'm in Congress, what I plan to do is work alongside Jamie Raskin and pass a piece of legislation to increase the threshold to 50 members of each House in order to object to an election, so that doesn't happen. Secondly, the vice president should never be the ceremonial person to deal with the certification. Mike Pence literally almost had the chance to overturn the election. We need to remove the president, vice president from that process and have the president pro tempore as part of that. And then a number of other things that have to happen. The gerrymandering problem is a big issue for authoritarianism. So I would propose that Congress pass a piece of legislation that bans gerrymandering across the United States. The federal government preempts all the states that are gerrymandering, and they are required to go through the federal government to do this. So those are a couple things to deal with the authoritarian problem, and I look forward to doing that as a constitutional law professor in Congress. And I think results. Progressive platitudes are fine. Talking about aspirational things are great. We're going to have someone in Congress who can actually go on day one and get things done from the very beginning. That's really important. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Our next candidate is Steve Irwin, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives from the 12th District. And Steve, since you just arrived a few minutes ago, we have 3 minutes to speak, 4 minutes to answer questions. If you stay generally between these two marks, you'll be on the screen.
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you. Hello, timekeepers. Okay. I am a child of the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club. After 5 years working in the United States Senate for Pennsylvania Senator, I came to Pittsburgh after graduating from Georgetown Law School to clerk for a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. I fell in love with Pittsburgh and I decided to stay here. And I raised my family here. And my 3 kids bleed black and gold because I immersed myself in this community. And so many organizations from 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club, Mentoring and Big Brothers Big Sisters, Sustainable Pittsburgh, Three Rivers Rowing, Carriage House Children's Center. I could go on and on, the Rainbow Kitchen, Food Bank, and all those organizations, almost all of them, I started out as a volunteer, and then people saw that I was able to produce and they put me on the board. And then after the board, I became the president of those boards and I've led them. And today, all those organizations are much bigger and better than they were when I started. I built a law career here. In my law career, I've fought discrimination. I fought monopolies. I fought pharmaceutical drug companies. I fought political corruption. I fought public housing mismanagement. And I found a home for politics here at the club. And I had great mentors, people like Molly Yard and Celeste Barron and Nat Hershey and Brenda Frazier. And these people, they gave me the opportunity to really understand politics and gave me the opportunity to do great things in this club, like elect great judges. And I became the executive vice president of this club and got to know a lot of people in politics. And during that time, people saw that I could get things done. So I started to get appointments, first in the city, chairing the parking authority, where I tore down a parking lot and put up Paradise over at, not I alone, but we did, over at Shenley Plaza. And then I was made our representative to the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, where we stopped a highway from going through Duck Hollow. And then Governor Rendell came and took me to Harrisburg and made me the head of banking and securities, so I could protect vulnerable populations from financial fraud. Issues like Main Street issues, but also fighting Wall Street. So we find ourselves now at this incredibly challenging time. And we have existential challenges here in our democracy and in our country and our planet. Does that mean 30 seconds left? Oh, crap. Okay. Well, let me just tell you this. I hope someone asks me what I'm going to do when I get to Congress, okay? The things I'm going to do and the bills that I want to get passed, things I want to do. But I can tell you this. I'm sorry I didn't run earlier. I wish I had. I got incredibly sick in 2012. I was planning on it, but I got better after 4 years. And suddenly I had to say to myself, now I got to put up or shut up. So I'm putting up. And that's why Mike Doyle has endorsed me. That's why Dan Frankel has endorsed me. That's why the Laborers Council, a collection of 10 trade unions, has endorsed me, because they know I can get things done in Washington, because I know how to get things done in Washington. And I know our community and our region here. So sorry I didn't. Please. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck. We just came off 8 hours sitting over at the ACDC, so it's a little overwhelming, but everyone did. So first of all, we have a great mental health challenge. Our health system is broken. We've got to fix it for our teenagers, for our seniors, for people because of the pandemic, it's been exacerbated, but we've got to fix that system. So I'm going to be a champion for a National Patient and Provider Safety Authority that's going to end medical error. And medical error for people who are brown and black is greatly disproportionate to those who are not. I'm going to make sure that we get change that we achieve carbon neutrality and the president's timetable by 2050. And I'm going to make sure that this region is a big part of figuring out how to get there and executing that. I'm going to make sure that the Mon Valley is part, and there are reinvestments in the Mon Valley, so they're part of that as well. And I'm going to make sure that we change an infrastructure, that we change the formulas in Washington so that the states that need it most because of the roads and the bridges that we have that are crumbling here because of truck traffic and salt that we use. In a time when it's based on gas usage, it doesn't make any sense because we're moving to an electrical car system, if nothing else. We have to electrify the grid. And I'm going to make sure that seniors can live in their homes safely and affordably and have the help they need by creating legislation to make movement, something that the federal government supports.
Recognizing that what it really means is getting rid of half of the fossil fuel industry by 2030.
Well, first of all, I'm hoping that, yeah, how do we get to a carbon neutrality without getting rid of the fossil fuel industry? Well, so I believe that this is a complex question. I'm not for a moratorium on fracking. We shouldn't be doing it in our backyards. We need much heavier regulation, but we have to have a mix. We have to move away from coal and we have to transcend toward solar and other energies and ones that hydrogen, et cetera. We also need to look very seriously at a carbon tax. That would work. So that's the short answer to that. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm in favor of a two-state solution in Israel and the Mideast. And I believe that the Palestinians and the Israelis need to work together to get that done. That we need to engage with our allies like Israel, our best friend in the Mideast, and we need to make sure that we push them to move toward that. But we're not going to be able to make that happen on our own. That's going to have to happen on their own, but we need to push in that direction. I support a two-state solution. Yes. Go ahead, Ed. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So we had 49 circulators of petitions. We had one who was paid, who came to us, had many references of campaigns he had worked on, recommended to us by people in the 14th Ward and elsewhere who worked with him. And he went out, we checked his signatures as they came in. They appeared good. We had 2,000 signatures. We always had more than enough signatures. There was never a question that we were going to be on the ballot. This was raised because of that. I did not forge any signatures. And as soon as the question was raised, I appointed 2 people. I'm an employment lawyer. I know how to look into these things. I had 2 people with a lot of experience in law enforcement interview the person. We made a determination that though many of those signatures probably were valid, that some caused question, we threw them out. We still had more than enough. And the 2 campaigns that were challenging us it was put up or shut up time, and they didn't do anything. They didn't file a challenge. It was just a distraction because Mike Doyle had, I believe, because Mike Doyle had endorsed me and they were trying to take the news cycle. Yeah. Anything else? Yes. Yeah, I'm completely pro-union. I support the PRO Act. I'm wearing this signature, this pin, because it was given to me by union members. I'm supported by the laborers. That's absolutely not true. I've never taken a case where I've been involved adverse to a union ever in my life. I've worked with the steelworkers closely on, and as the head of ADA here, and as I've worked with a bunch of unions, helping them with their business matters and others. I've never had an NLRB case. I've never busted a union. During 2001 to 2011, when I was head of the employment group at Leach Tishman, we had no practice at all that dealt with that. And I've never personally been involved. That article that was sent out, that's illegal. It's a violation of the federal election laws. It didn't disclose who had sent it out, and it was a dirty trick. And if we want to talk about what this party, how we're going to get ahead and move forward as a party, we've got to focus on the issues. We got to stop doing these diversionary tactics where we take good candidates. If you want people to run who are good and get involved in politics, then don't do that kind of stuff. That doesn't make it good for anybody. No one wants to be here to have those kind of spats. We want to focus on the issues. There are important issues we need to focus on. Yeah. I think, then it was mailed to every committee person in the entire Allegheny County. That's illegal. Yeah, that was written by a friend of one of my opponents. I mean, it said 3 times. I don't know who did it. Frankly, I'm not going to focus on it because, first of all, it's not true. Nothing in there is true. And I don't know where it came from, but again, we're being distracted, you guys. We have real problems. People are living paycheck to paycheck. They're trying to figure out how to get their kids educated. They're trying to get their kids who are having tremendous mental problems and challenges fixed. If we're going to be, as a party, move ahead, we've got to fix these problems. We've got to get things that matter in people's lives. We've got to do things that are going to make a difference in people's lives. And then they'll see, when you elect good people, they're going to want to get involved in those elections so they can elect people who make a difference. That's what this is about. We're all responsible for each other. We got to help each other. It's what I do every day as chair of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission for Pennsylvania. I bring people together. I don't want to divide. I want to get things done. That's why I'm running for Congress. Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Steve. That was an ugly thing that happened. The club members working on the endorsement committee have been trying to find out where it came from. We have been unsuccessful so far, but we're going to keep trying. It included some inaccurate information. I'm not going to publicly support any candidate here, but I know that the allegation that Steve represented the employers who tried to challenge the sick leave for low wage workers was an inaccurate statement. It was not Steve nor his law firm. My husband was on the other side and successfully won that case, and Steve was not a part of that litigation. So I think that people should know that there were things in that article that weren't true. So we're going to keep trying to find out. If we find out anything, we will get it to everybody as quickly as we learn. But honestly, it came anonymously. It went to all of the state committee members, the county Democratic committee members in the district. No return address, no attribution. It was a reprint of an article. I don't think that's good for democratic politics. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we just we will keep digging, but I don't think we're going to be able to find out where it came from, but it was ugly, ugly, ugly. Oh, let me go grab my notes for 1 minute because I wanted to, as we wrap up. That's not the kind of thing that the club endorses. We're about good government and good politics, and that shouldn't be happening. So today you heard from the US Senate candidates, and you have heard from US House candidates, Will Parker, Summer Lee, Jerry Dickinson, and Steve Irwin. there were, I'm sorry that the state committee wasn't on the ballot. We were so overwhelmed with all these other things. We didn't get the state committee on the ballot, but I want to recognize that Ryan Herbinko was here today, who is currently on state committee and running again, and Tracy Baton, who is running for the first time to be on state committee, was here as well. Pardon me? Oh, okay. And who? Ian Price. And Ian Price was here. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that Ian was here as well. So I want to remind everybody that your ballots went out about 1 o'clock today. Everybody who has paid their 2022 dues should have received your ballot. It'll be an email coming from OpaVote. When you open, and it's unique to you, when you open your ballot, you'll be able to vote for the candidates. And we're going to keep the voting open until 6 o'clock. Now, if there's anybody here or online who thinks you should have received a ballot and you don't have it in your email, please let myself or Noel Walkington know. We'll verify whether your dues have been paid or not. You can still pay your dues. If you haven't paid your dues, you can hop on go to the club website, do the PayPal thing. We'll verify, and we're going to send out. Mac Booker is handling the OpaVote. So we'll be sending him a supplemental list about 4 o'clock of anybody who for some reason didn't make it on the list, but don't worry, we've tried to do a good job about that. I think that wraps up all of our candidates for today. We have lots of cookies left. So we urge you, if you want to kibitz some more, I think there's tons of coffee. There's tons of cookies. We have to be out of here. You know, we have time, but you don't have to run out the door right away. And thank everybody for your participation. Vote. It's going to matter. Thank you.